The way many people talk about land banking, they talk about land banking as if there is no risk attached to land banking. And that's a lie, because every investment that you see has its own portion of risk. I'll continue to say that, because the truth is, one must know what he is investing into. What are the pros? What are the cons? It is not just about showing the people the pros while we are not telling them about the cons. Not just telling them about the advantages, the benefits, while we are not talking about the downside. We are not talking about the disadvantages, the risk that is associated, the risk that is involved in such investments. So in this video, I want to talk about risk associated with land banking. Risk. There are many risks, but I want to talk about 5, and possibly how we can mitigate it, how we can reduce this risk. So let's go into it. Number 1 is overprojection. Overprojection. What do I mean projection? Because everything we do in real estate is to project, to say, okay, by this time, in 10 years time, in 5 years time, in 15 years time, it is possible what this land would have been worth 15 million naira. A land you are buying for 1 million naira. That 15 million naira in actual fact can be over projection. So if you put it to mind and say, okay, in the next 10 years or in the next 5 years, this land would have been worth 15 million naira. At the end, maybe after 5 years, that land now worth, let's say, 7 million naira. You can see that it's over projection. So what do you do in such a case? How do you mitigate this risk? It is to say, what is the worst case scenario? That's the way to mitigate it, so that you will not put your mind on unnecessary, should I say, flattery or exaggeration of the realtor or the agent. So the question is, what is the worst case scenario? If you say, okay, in the next 10 years, it would have been worth 15 million naira. What is the worst case scenario? That is the best case. What is now the worst case? So you put your mind in the worst case scenario. That's what we look at when we are investing. That, okay, the worst case scenario, I know the land would have appreciated, all things being equal, no flood, no insecurity, all those ones not being there. This land would have been worth, let's say, 7 million naira. A land you are buying for 1 million naira. So overprojection is a risk that is associated with land banking. People overproject, and that's why at the end, I know of a case that a land that was bought as far as 1979, and today is just selling for 800,000 naira per plot. You know what that means? Meanwhile, if that same money that has been invested in that location has been used in another location, so you can see that at times we overproject. So that's why you need to look at the worst case scenario. Know that, okay, in all, I know that my wealth will be preserved. Because if I put this same money in the bank, it will depreciate due to inflation. So the goal is to have an appreciation rate that is more than the inflation rate. So the moment that location can give you the rates, the appreciation rate that is more than the inflation rate, then you are good to go. So don't buy into all this over projection. Give yourself, what is the worst case scenario? So that's how to solve the risk of over projection. What is number 2? Omonile or land grabber issues. Omonile or land grabber. Omonile is different from land grabbers. I've said it in a previous video, it's different. Land grabbers are those who just come, we call them in Yoruba Ajagungbale. They just come to one location and they say they want to take over the land. While Omonile is those ancestral owners, especially those who sold the land to you. And because most of them are from a polygamous family, when you are dealing with them, they don't open up. They don't usually open up on, okay, this land belongs to, let's say, a total of 15 people. But they will not open up. So those are the issues. And eventually, maybe it's only 3 people who sold it. The remaining people will now be coming up later. So many issues associated with them. But if you know your way, if you have knowledge and you can do your due diligence, that's why I tell people, don't rush real estate investments. Don't rush it, except you are buying it from a real estate company that you know that, okay, this real estate is tested, they have integrity, and they have a good reputation. Except that, don't rush into it. Take your time. It is better your money remains in the bank than you rushing into real estate investments. So it is not a do or die affair. So it is better you have your money safe. Your money, safety of your money is very important. So on money issue and land grabbers, how do you minimize, how do you mitigate the risk? It is through due diligence. Make sure you do your due diligence about the omonile you are buying from, about that particular location. Number 3 is the maturity of the location. Maturity. There's some location. I remember they called me for one location. They told me they wanted to sell, and it was for land banking. When I heard about the location, I've not been there. I told the person I'm not buying. Why? Because the maturity of that location will be, let's say, nothing less than 30 years, nothing less than 30 years. So you need to consider the maturity of the location as well. So plus or minus, that is how to deal with that. Plus or minus. Okay, plus, let's say it's going to be 20 years. Minus, let's say it's going to be 15 years. So do your plus or minus. So that kind of land, I know that the minimum, except by the anomaly, except by happenstance. But if all those ones don't come in, sincerely, the minimum is 30 years for that, the maturity of that location. I don't want to mention the location so that I will not discourage some people who have already bought into that location. So do your plus or minus. Maturity of location differs. The rate at which Ekpe is going to mature is different from the rate at which Badagry is going to mature. So you need to understand that. Abeokuta, for instance, when you are buying Kobakpe and you are buying, let's say, you are buying Awowo, Kobakpe, Awowo, the maturity is different. The rate at which Kobakpe is growing is different from Awowo. You can't compare the maturity with each other. So you need to understand the maturity of location when you are investing in land banking. That's number 3. Number 4 is communal issues. Communal issues. At times there are issues based on communal issues and you don't know. For instance, there is one that happened in Ogun State of recent. One community was selling the land that belongs to another community and there were issues on that land. I was in one location too like that. So you need to understand that there are communal issues on lands as well. Because one thing about land is once you buy it, you cannot take it and put it in your pocket. You cannot say you want to go and keep it safe in the bank. You cannot carry the land. It's there. So that's a major issue with land. You cannot carry it. So when there are communal issues, what do? The best thing is ask questions. If there are no communal issues, you need to ask questions. Go there, make your findings, and eventually you'll be good to go. Number 5 is government policies. Government policies. Government policies can change, and there's nothing we can do to this one. This one is inherent in every investment. Ask those who are doing forex. The moment there's a fundamental news from government, before you know it, it nosedives or it skyrockets in minutes. But that doesn't even happen to real estate. It only affects it maybe on a short run, on a long run. But for those ones, it is instantaneous. It is instant. I was once in the industry, so I know what I'm talking about. I lost money in minutes. In minutes. Before I got back into the trade, I saw that money has gone just because there was a fundamental news about the dollar. So government policies cut across every industry, cut across every investment, and there's no way you can reduce it. That's just the truth. That's just the plain truth. So thank you so much. If this video has helped you have gained knowledge, kindly give it a thumbs up and click on the subscribe button if you are yet to subscribe to this channel. Click on the notification bell so that you can also be notified whenever I release a new video. So we'll meet in our next video. Stay blessed.